Hello and welcome to Vox Markets. Today I'm joined by John Mahtani, who's CEO at MTS Spac. How are you today, John?
I'm very well, Zach. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. We haven't spoken for what seems like months, and I think it probably is months in this particular format. We have MTS Spac announcing an acquisition, which was, I suppose, the purpose of being a SPAC in the media space. Media technology space. But the first question regarding this Drylab acquisition is, how did you find it? Because there are obviously quite a few targets out there.
Yeah, it's been quite an interesting journey, because last year, as you can appreciate, Zach, we evaluated a number of companies, and Drylab was very much in the mix. Drylab is a company that, funny enough, I actually discovered whilst I was at a film festival in Poland. Back in 2018, and they happened to be running a showreel that really caught my eye. And so I came out of the screening afterwards and requested to see the sales guy who was there to represent them. And it's just funny how things pan out sometimes, but I'd always had a good eye on that company just because of their showreel at the cinematographer's film festival. And we decided to pursue the transaction because we felt it made sense from our experience, and also we felt we could bring a lot of value to acquiring a company like Drylab.
And in terms of what you can do with Drylab, what is the plan there?
Well, Drylab is predominantly, it's a Norwegian-based SaaS production platform company, and their markets have been mainly Norway and Sweden. Now, between myself, Frank, Celia, Rick, and some of the other members who are going to be joining us very soon, we've got very much an international network of a really strong client base, we believe. We've got very good relationships with the studios in Los Angeles. We know a lot of the big players in India, in China, in Europe, which was very much our home territory for many, many years. To give you an idea, when I was at Warner Brothers, we were delivering content to 53 countries. On every title, and then when we worked on Harry Potter's, we would deliver content to 120 different countries across the globe. So that helped us establish a very, very strong network across the globe. So our plan is very much to take Drylab from as I said to their board when we presented the idea to them, was taking them out of the pond and bringing them into the ocean. Because with our network, I'm very confident, we can walk into Los Angeles and challenge some of the incumbents that are actually currently in there.
Right. One of the noticeable features of the pandemic, and I suppose we're hopefully in the post-pandemic period, is the thirst for content around the world. We know everybody's familiar with Netflix and Amazon Prime and all these other Disney Plus, etc. Is Drylab a play on that as well? That sort of content hunger that we have at the moment?
Most definitely. I mean, Drylab have been working with Netflix and HBO, and they've done some stuff with BBC. Most recently, they did a series called Catch 22 with George Clooney, and providing a strong digital platform that can enhance productions to be able to save time and cost by being able to disseminate the content to people across the globe, because you have various stakeholders, means that it makes the whole production workflow so much more efficient. So we're really excited to be able to present some of the key USPs of the platform. It's a really intuitive platform, very, very easy to use, has a strong component of metadata, which means that a lot of the information related to each scene can be captured by a script supervisor. And so later on within the process, people can go back and get specific information around what camera was used, what lens was used, because as you can appreciate, when you're shooting a film for 120, 130 days, you don't do it sequentially. You may do day 30 first, and then you do day 60, and then you come back and you do day 2, because you do, the way you run your rota is very different. You could decide it's this time of the year, we need to go and do all our exterior shots first. And then as we move into the latter part of the year, we can do the interior shots because we're not so concerned about the external weather conditions and stuff. So being able to have a platform that can show you, okay, I'm just about to shoot day 31, but what did day 30 look like 3 months later? So you've got that continuity to be able to go back, view that content at an ease, and you can ensure that the lead actor actually had long hair at the time, and making sure that he's still got the similar sort of style, as opposed to people not realizing that the film is actually running for a particular period, and we need to make sure that continuity sits well, because it does look a bit unprofessional sometimes when people have to remember what type of day was it and how was the sky at the time. And yeah, you can actually, you've got visibility straight away by being able to go back very, very quickly and view that content.
Right, well, hair continuity is something very important to me, obviously, but the Drylab purchase, it's been described as a disruptive technology. What does that mean in this particular space? Because it's not maybe a sort of intuitive thing that you would understand.
Right. Well, I think, see, I'm an accountant by trade, and for me, I remember when back in the day we used to write everything down on ledgers, and then all of a sudden things like SAP and Sage and all these accounting platforms turned up, and we moved over from using things in what we would write down physically, and had to move over to using a software platform to help us. And for us, we see Drylab as being very similar to that, because we speak to lots of script supervisors and directors and producers, and they're having to write lots of things down, whereas now they have a platform that they can actually capture a lot of that information digitally. So they've created something called set report. Within that, a lot of the key information around the shoot can be captured electronically and then can be disseminated to all the key stakeholders, as opposed to writing lots of bits and pieces down on paper, or it actually being up in somebody else's head. We're actually capturing a lot of that key information early doors to be able to push that information to key stakeholders, whether that's the edit house, whether that's the cinematographer who needs to see that, whether it needs to be seen by the VFX house. There's lots of key stakeholders in the process, and if everybody can see information that's being shared early on, it helps them from a planning stage and make sure that the whole process is a lot more efficient.
And the other point, which is maybe not entirely obvious, is the carbon footprint aspect of Drylab. How does that work?
Well, I mean, there's two or three angles. Firstly, right now everybody's writing lots of things down. So you've got paper and ink, which are two things that you're not having to do anymore, because you can create PDF reports from the platform. Secondly, if you think you're working on a production, you can sign off on the production that night because you've got visibility on what the content looks like. Then it means that you can actually take down a set a lot earlier, so you're not actually running for more days than you need to. And so therefore, on that basis, it means that we're saving time whilst we're shooting. So that obviously has an impact. But for me, the biggest impact is where traditionally you would view content in an edit suite, where everybody would have to come to that particular suite and make their way there. Whereas now we could have Netflix in LA, we could have a producer in New York, we could have a financier in London, we could have the production shooting, I don't know, in Ireland. This way, everybody gets to see the content at the same time, so they don't have to travel somewhere to view the content. And if they don't have to travel, that also has an impact, as we know, on the carbon footprint. So there's definitely some measures that can be achieved by having a strong platform that actually disseminates information and makes sure people's time and effort is used more efficiently.
And finally, you said you are a trained accountant. Presumably, in terms of the Drylab deal, that puts you in a good place in terms of appraising it, etc. Are you happy with the deal that you've struck and the valuation and obviously the read across to MTS Spac itself?
Yeah, I think that the deal that we've done is a very good deal for everyone. It's a good deal for the Drylab current shareholders, and it's a really good deal for the Media Tech Spac shareholders who've been very patient. For us, I think one of the things that we looked at what was going on within the sector. Just in the last 6 months, Adobe acquired Frame.io, and Moxion was acquired by Autodesk. So we see that there's a lot of appetite in this space. Our plan is to grow this, to grow Drylab to a certain multiple, and then hopefully we'll be having a similar conversation with somebody else. I mean, that's the plan ultimately, but the valuation, I believe, is fair for where the business is. It's really for us to bring our expertise and know-how to grow this company and make it a global player.
Right, you've done the deal. Presumably shareholders in or investors in MTS Spac are chomping at the bit, waiting for the company to come to market. Is there any time frame on that at this stage?
Yeah, so now we've completed the acquisition. Our focus is we're working with our Nomad WH Ireland and our brokers to list in the coming months. You know, I always I've been told not to give an exact month these days because it always comes back to bite you. But we're working very, very hard on getting that listing organised within the coming months. So it won't be long now before they can start to see some value on their patience.
Well, we look forward to the date whenever it arrives. In the meantime, John Mahtani, CEO at MTS Spac, thank you very much indeed.
Always a pleasure, Zach. Lovely to catch up with you as always. Thank you.